Alexandra Sleator of Coaching for Inspiration, and welcome to my third video on goals. In the first video, I went back to basics and I asked what is a goal in the first place. In the second video, I shared with you a simple but I hope powerful way to set your goals so that you maximize your chances of success. In this video, let me pick up immediately where I left off in the second video, namely the SMARTY process to flesh out your goal. And what I want to share with you is that the SMARTY process is not just a great acronym for a useful process, but it's also a way to get into a very special place of comfort, which I call the zone. I spend a lot of time watching American TV and I love American idioms. So being in the zone in American English means being in a place of comfort where you're at ease with something. And so the zone that I want to tell you about today with respect to goal achievement is a zone that has three dimensions: connected, confident, and in control. Now on the screen right now should be appearing a diagram which illustrates how the various components of the SMARTY acronym relate to the three zones of the three dimensions, of the zone. So for example, you can see that specific relates to connected. Indeed, as I shared with you during the second video already, when you make your goal very specific, you get connected to it both in your mind and in your gut. Similarly, we see that achievable relates to the confidence part, and achievable was about understanding the capabilities that you needed to bring to bear in order to achieve that goal. So whether you had yourself the capacities, whether there were some skills that you needed to acquire, or whether you needed to collaborate with others. Once you have dealt with the capability side of things and you know your goal is achievable, you are in a place of confidence. Now, I won't go through the whole slide and tell you how the various letters all connect to the three dimensions of the zone in the interest of time. But I will be holding a teleclass for those of you who want to explore this material further, also because you may have questions you want to ask or goals you want to discuss, so that's what the teleclass will be about. But let's continue for now, and let me use an example for the remainder of the video which illustrates the benefits of being in the zone, being connected to your goal, being confident about it, and in control. Now, let me take you back in time. Let me take you back to when you took your driving test. I've on purpose took something that is in the past for most of us, in order to just more focus on the example than really a workplace example that would speak to some of you but not to others. This one hopefully resonates with everyone. And as for me, I picked it because when I think about it, and I had to memorize all these signs and these road markings, I think I nearly lost the will to live. Anyway, so how did I get through it? And that's a little bit my story about how I passed my driving test. So in terms of the connection, and let's assume, which is, to be honest, not true because at the time I didn't know about SMARTY, that I have set myself the goal of passing my driving test using the SMARTY method. So I am starting to work on the theoretical part, right, which is this memorizing of all the signs and markings, memorizing the highway code. I'm kicking off that work from a place of comfort. I am in the zone because I've used the SMARTY process. So I'm connected. How do I stay connected? Well, I remember that, of course, one of the ways I motivated myself is that I remembered that even if I was a champ at the driving part of the exam, if I couldn't demonstrate that I also knew the markings and the signals and the signs, then I wasn't going to pass. But that was a very intellectual reminder. So in fact, what worked for me was visualization. So I work with two types of images. Positive images, where on the one hand, I visualized myself driving not just well, but very competently, very relaxed, And in fact, I had the image of Lady Penelope driving her pink Rolls Royce, for those of you who will know what I'm talking about. On the other hand, I also had negative images to sort of spur me on, things I didn't want to have happen. And those were images of accidents, crashing, sending myself or someone else to the hospital, the police, my parents being embarrassed. All of these images helped me, together with the fact that I had a very specific goal, a goal that had a very clear, measurable outcome, and which I had recorded very firmly, helped me stay connected, so that even though it was dead boring, I plodded along. I just kept at it. And just thinking about it right now, you can tell how painful that was. But anyway. So, second dimension is confidence. How did I stay confident? Well, that goes back to the achievable dimension of the Smarty. And I knew that I had the capabilities, right? Because what does it take to learn the highway code? Memory, memorization. And there, like I'm sure all of you watching, I had the very recent memory of being in high school and having to memorize, for example, pages and pages of history books, or having to absorb complex math, integers and God knows what, or learning a foreign language. So I knew that I had the memory capacity to absorb all these signs and markings and everything else, you know, dreadful though it all was. So by being confident in my capabilities, then I knew that I would make it. And that meant that when I got, for example, confused, I don't know about you, but I took mock exams, and sometimes I would completely forget, you know, a sign that was in fact quite obvious, or I would get confused between two signs. Well, you know, I reminded myself it was just a little hiccup along the way, and that, you know, I had passed much harder exams and I was going to get through it, so I didn't worry needlessly. And because I didn't worry needlessly, I didn't lose too much time, I didn't have unproductive thoughts in my mind, clouding my mind and, you know, taking space in my mind instead of, you know, logging all these signs and markings for the highway code. So that was the confidence bit. Now, control. Control relates, as you may recall from the brief slide I showed you earlier, to being energized about your goal and to have the goal being yours. Control is actually the third dimension, clearly, of my comfort zone. It's a very subtle one. In the case of the driving test, it was pretty clear that it was up to me. So I was in control. And this is in contrast to, for example, if I wanted to run for Mayor of London. Because then I would be much less in control, because for my goal to happen, I would have to get a lot of people to vote for me. So that would be quite a tall order. So this is, of course, a bit of a drastic way, a black and white way to show you that control has some factual elements to it about, you know, who can play a role in you achieving your goal. But even when it's really up to you and you don't have too many others in the picture, you never get to 100% of control, because I could have gotten sick and therefore not been able to even go and take the exam, or I could have stayed up worrying all night, so much so that I was dead the next morning and unable to perform. Or simply I could have had a moment where my mind went just blank when I was given the exam paper. So even when it's up to you, it's never 100% of control. So control is about the influence that you can realistically hope to have over reality. But once you know about your zone of influence effectively, then do something about it. So for me, I avoided going outside without the hat, so that I didn't catch a cold and have fever on the day of the exam. I took a sleeping pill so that I was sleeping like a little baby, instead of staying up all night chewing on my nails. But in the end, with respect to mitigating from my mind going blank on the very moment that I was handing the exam, there was not much I could do about that. So I just crossed my fingers, really. The other thing I want to tell you about control is that it's not just about the factual dimension of it, it's also about how you think about it. So control is not really the same as how factually capable you are about something. You can be capable of something, but if you doubt it, you're effectively letting control slip away. So be mindful when you talk about control to yourself, when you're having that inner dialogue around, do I feel connected to my goal, do I feel confident about it, and how about the control bit of it, that control is about the facts of the case, but also about how you look at it. And the more connected and the more confident you are, actually the more in control you should feel. So those zones are interconnected as well, just to make it more complicated. Anyway, I've come to the end of this third video, and I hope that I've shown you the benefits of being confident, connected, in control, and what it means when you're not in your zone. And the reason why it's important to be in the zone is because difficulties will arise. There's two types of difficulties. First, there's simply the passage of time. Because it's one thing to be all fired up once you've done the Smarty process, you've fleshed out your goal, you're connected to it, you're rearing to go, and you kick off. But as we noted in the previous video, goals take time. So you need to keep your motivation up. And so the more you're in the zone, the more you have that vibe, the more it will last. And therefore it will allow you to keep doing the things that you need to do to make your goal happen. The other type of things that happen on the way to your goal are going to be simply difficulties. And this gives me a very nice segue into my fourth and final video on goals, which is about how to cope with difficulties, how to deal with them well, so that they don't detract you from your goal, they don't derail you, and that in fact you achieve your goal despite the likely difficulties which are, possibly will happen. So I hope this was useful. Please let me know your thoughts by writing to me at alexandra@coachingforinspiration.com. And bye for now. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.